Колеги, ми продовжуємо.
We continue our working day, and I give the floor to the Vadym Skibitskyi, Chief Intelligence Department, Ministry of Defense of Russia. The topic is intelligence information on combat losses of Russian 1st and 2nd Army Corps in Donbass. You are given the floor. Good afternoon, everyone. As of today, the Chief Intelligence Department prepared brief information on losses of Russian forces in Donbass. First, the information concerns is about Russians who died in the course of the military actions and were in 1st and 2nd Army Corps of occupation forces of Russia. And despite rejections of the claim of presence of Russian forces in Ukraine, there's a tendency and more Russian servicemen die in the territory of Donbass. And according to the information from the start of 2016, 42 Russians died in the territory of occupied Donetsk and Lugansk oblasts. And as the result of our work, there is documents that prove that some Russian servicemen were killed or wounded in the territory of Ukraine. And we conducted a study, and we have statistics on the death and injury during 2015, 9 months of 2015. And according to intelligence service in the territory of Ukraine, from 1st and 2nd Military Corps, 627 Russian servicemen died and 2,555 were wounded. And in the slide you can see the dynamics of these losses in the course of these 9 months. And the major part of these losses that were inflicted during the military actions were after the Minsk agreements were signed and aggressive actions led by Russian Federation in our territory. And now the information is to your attention. The identified data, personal data as to the persons who died or got injured in the territory of Donbass. And we prepared information on these losses during 1 week, starting from 30th of August to 30th of October. And in September, 46 people were wounded during this time. And here you can see some officers that died. These officers are from the 1st and 2nd Army Corps of Russia. Here you can see 5 names and information on these officers. But there are many more, and I can say about the commander of company Burakov, commander and Lieutenant Lisov, Vasilenko, Novikov, and commanders of platoon Sterenko and Chernyakov. And this is a part of the data on those Russian officers who died in the territory of Ukraine. And we have data on their positions, their date of birth, and also the place where they were killed or injured, and also the type of their injuries or the causes why these people died. And you can see the information about surgeons and privates who died in the territory of Ukraine during the week. And Zageyka sergeant, Zlatuhin Mironov Sobolev, and privates Anka Familenchuk Titov. And we have information about all those who died or were injured during 30th of August till 30th of September And we know that there are many more people who were killed or injured during this time. And also the events that happened near Mariinka. You remember that then Russian occupation forces, they took measures in order to launch an offensive against Ukrainian forces. And during this operation, from the side of the Republic Guard, such losses were inflicted. 12 dead, 80 wounded, and heavily wounded 18 people. And the real figures are much higher. And the analysis of information shows this about the facts that happened in Mariinka. And we also analyzed the reasons that led to the death of Russian servicemen in the territory of Ukraine starting from this year. And the main reasons are: first, this is active participation in subversive activities against our forces in the ATO area. And ceasefire continued, but also part of Minsk agreements were implemented by Russian occupation forces, continue to carry out subversive activities, both near the line of contact and in the regions of so-called gray zones, and also in the territory that is under control of our state. And in many cases, in the course of the military actions from our regular forces, and other law enforcement and services, these subverters die. Also, the reasons are minefields that were established by different different illegal armed formations and by military forces of Russia. And in the course of rotation, the number of dead militants and Russian servicemen increases because they don't know the territory where the military actions take place, and they die because of booby traps or minefields that were established by their predecessors. Also, they forcefully decide their own issues, and they use arms in their conflict. We see conflict situations among the rebels, and also at the and in many cases they use arms, and it leads to the death of these militants and Russian servicemen, or to wounds and injuries. We should also note that one of the main trends now is the actions of Russian special services. They carry out some provocative actions against first and second corps in order to force them to act, to react, and to involve them in military actions and at firing and shelling at Ukrainian positions, and also to speculate with this. They say that Ukraine violates agreements, and they try to that they fire at positions, and also they use the method of actions. This is done by the special services of Russia. They remind the militants that they should be ready, and they should be ready to return fire at the positions of military armed forces of Ukraine. And for this, they carry out provocative shellings from neutral territory, and they make it in order to force to return fire at our positions. And also, I would like to say that together with the continuation of shellings of our positions, the losses of servicemen from Russian side in our territory is the proof of direct armed violations from the side of Russia against our state. Also, we should note that Russian leadership take measures in order to hide the presence of Russian servicemen in the occupied territories, and also they hide real losses among their servicemen in Donbass. Meanwhile, it is difficult to hide these losses because during this time it increases, and the number of dead is not tens or hundreds, but these are thousands of people, and the number of Russian servicemen who died of regular forces of Russia. This number increases not only in Donbas, but also added is the number that died in the territory of Syria. And we understand that one can hide statistical data and to distort this data, but we see fresh graves in the territory of Russia, especially with refs from the ministry, where the dates are stated. These are 2014, 2015, 2016, so they cannot hide these facts. According to our data and estimate, this trend as to the increase in losses, and I remind you about Syria, and it will lead to the social tension in Russian society. And there's difficult economic situation in Russia, and also taking account that there's hiding of all the data as to the losses, the situation will deteriorate. And I would like to remind you that Russian leadership do everything possible in order to hide real facts and real number of those who died. And you know that President Putin signed a decree from May last year that determined that they should not disseminate information on losses of Russian troops. And this is a state secret, actually. And that's why the situation is difficult. But we will try to identify those who died among Russian citizens, Russian servicemen who died in our territory, in order to provide this information to their relatives, families, their mothers, in order to get proper reaction. And they should understand that these people who died, they are occupants, but their relatives should know where they are. Thank you very much for your attention, and now I'm ready for the questions. Thank you. And now questions. Do you have some questions or comments? If there's no comments or questions, thank you very much. And this is the end of our press conference. Till the next time, goodbye. Dear colleagues, I remind that our next briefing is at 1:30.